All right, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about Boolean logic. What is Boolean logic and why do we use it? Basically, Boolean logic is 1 and 0. Okay, so what the computer does, it says, okay, is this true or is this false? Now, the way it does that is basically just processing as a true-false statement. So if I say equals 10 is equals 10. What is that saying? Well, ignore the first equals sign. Okay, just completely ignore that. That's just saying we're doing a formula. 10 equals 10. True. If I did 10 equals 9, well, that's false, right? 10 can't equal 9. Okay, if I did 10 equals 5 plus 5, it goes back to true. So all this is saying is this a true statement or is this a false statement? Okay. Now, what we can do, we can combine cell referencing with true false statements. So let's say we have 10 here, we have 10 here, we have 9 here. We'd say, okay, we're going to say, does this top cell, which we're going to lock, is that equal to this cell? True. Okay. What about this cell? False. And I'm going to move this Control X, Control V, just move that over. 8, 7, 10, right? So I can just drag this down. So, we just lock the cell we want to ask, and then we have it change for the cell we're looking at. And we can just quickly look and see, is that 10? Well, what if, let's do something else. What if we do apple, orange, strawberry, apple, cannot spell. All right, so we're gonna do a similar thing. We're gonna put, Apple up here. Say, you're doing some analysis, and you're trying to see if this analysis um, has, some factor, right? Like maybe you're looking at a data set, and it's like we need to know everything in the southeast region. Well, a quick way to do that. Sometimes you might use a filter, right? You do Control Shift L. You say, oh, we just want things that are apples, right? But maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you just do a true false statement. So I say equals, find this within this statement. And every time it shows up as true, it'll come up. And then we can go here and we can just filter on true. We can just get rid of that. It will just have the true statements. And a way you can combine this, you're like, oh, like why am I just looking for Apple? It's kind of stupid. Well, let's think about something else here. Let's think about, say you want two things. Say you want, I'm gonna do this. You want to, we have Apple here, and you're looking for a condition. So equals concatenate. So it can combine two things. This and this. Okay. All right. So we say, this could be you want data from the south and you want data from the west. So you only want southwest data, but you have two different variable columns for both. Well, you can just come here and say, okay, equals concatenate. And I want you to concatenate this and this. And then I want you to set that equal to the variable we're looking at, which we're going to lock. Okay, and notice how here, when it was 10 in orange, it returned as false. Okay, so this is kind of the power of Boolean logic. It allows you to test is something true or false. And where it really shows up a lot is in if statements. And if statements get overused by a lot of people, but that's fine. We can just show you what the power of an if statement is. And then we can kind of go over why it's overused and how you can just use a Boolean statement instead of that. So let's say you're looking at a data set and the data set is on housing and there's like some interest rate. So let's just say point 035. Sure. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna add a 0 there. Okay, move that down just for the formatting. We'll make that 2.5, 2.75, 3.9, and 1.9. Okay, so we have some interest rates here, and then we have whether or not, let's just say fixed or floating. Fixed, fixed, floating, make these fixed. Okay. All right. And let's just say you want to make an if statement. So it says, okay, equals if. What does the if statement do? Well, it says logical test. What does a logical test mean? It means Boolean statement. So if you want it to return as true or to return as false, here's what you do. You say, okay, if this number, okay, let's get in the use of locking things. So let's just column lock it because we know we want it to stay in column F. If this number is greater than 0.03, so 3%, then I'm going to add a comma, move to the next statement, value if true. Well, then we want it to return as whatever is in this cell. Okay, so let's say that we're going to column lock that again. We want it to return as fixed or floating. However, if it's below 3%, we want it to return as, let's just say class A. So if you want to do a string, we're going to put in the parentheses there. Make sure you use those. And here we go. Now I'm just going to drag this down. Okay, so what is this doing? What's saying, okay, if this is above 3%, then we want to know if it's fixed or floating. If it's not, we're just going to treat it as class A and we don't care. Maybe you're doing some analysis there. Now, notice how we're combining a lot of things in this if statement. We're combining a Boolean logic. We're also combining um, cell referencing to return another cell, and we're providing another thing here. So what a lot of people do, and this is a good use of an if statement, by the way, but what a lot of people do is say you have some cells over here. So we get what a Boolean statement is, we get why you would use an if statement, but let's go into this. So this is, let's just call this revenue by month, so let's just, Jan. That's not how I should do that here. So you press control and spacebar, and then Control Shift plus. So we're going to add a row here, and then I'm going to do this. I'm going to call this 01/31/2021. Okay. Press Control 1, go over to date, tab in. I'm going to go to that format, and then I'm going to do equals EO month. Go over here, jump by a month. Okay. And then we're going to do the same thing. Go over to date. Okay. So we added some dates here. This is our revenue by month. And let's say when you're building a model, you want to add some error checking. And I always recommend this. Always add some error checking. You can do it at the back of a row. You can do it in the front of the row. It doesn't matter. What this is really here for is to make sure that you don't have a formula mistake. So what you want to check is we know that total revenue is going to be 1,500 for the 5 months. Does what we have mapped out in our cash flows equal to 1,500? Well, the way to do that is you could write an if statement. So you could say, okay, if the sum of these cells, and let's lock the row here. If the sum of these cells is equal to this cell, which will lock the column in the row, then I want you to return as check. Otherwise, return as error. Now, this is a very simple error check. All it's doing is saying, hey, does 1,500 equal this 1,500 up here? And it does, so it returns as check. Now, we can do this in a much simpler way, just using Boolean logic. So we just do this, equals sum of this. So we're going to sum that up. And we go equals here, and it'll return as true, right? So a lot of times, notice here, we were trying to have it do different things. We wanted to pull another cell. We wanted it to return as a string. So burying that Boolean logic within the if statement actually made a lot of sense. But up here, we're just trying to return this as true or false, right? Like you don't need anything more than that. So I'll leave that there, but Boolean logic is very powerful, and you should become very comfortable using it.